If this video gets shadow banned, consider my point even more proven. But also, if you could share, that really helps. If you're finding this video, how many views does it have versus how many likes does it have? If it has a lot of likes and not a lot of views, report TikTok to your regulator, please. Everything that I'm about to say in this video comes from primary sources from the SEC, the 9/11 Commission, and academic research from 3 separate universities. You can get the full essay on my Substack, allymacforever.substack.com. There are no shortage of conspiracy theories around 9/11. Was it Bush? Was it the CIA? Maybe. What I'm about to share with you is what hard empirical evidence can confirm. For a lot of Americans, especially of my generation and older, 9/11 is one of the deepest wounds in American history. Thousands of ordinary New Yorkers and brave firefighters and medics were unfortunately killed on this day. But the day also became the catalyst for America's war on terror, which then took the lives of 1 million Iraqis. I want to park the emotion there for a minute. It has been over 20 years since this event, and we need to look clinically and coldly at the money. We need to look at Wall Street and what was happening on the trading floor just days before those planes hit. I need to first explain to those who don't know what a put option is. If you know, you can skip about a minute from here. A put option is basically a type of bet. So stock is a tiny slice of ownership in a company. If you own stock in American Airlines and American Airlines has a good year, the value of your stock goes up, so you can sell it for more than you paid. A put option is the opposite bet. It gives you the right to sell your stock at a fixed price by a certain date, even if the price has crashed. Let's say American Airlines shares are trading at 50 cents each. You buy a put option that says I can sell these shares at 50 cents anytime in the next month. That put option costs you 2 cents. If nothing happens to American Airlines share value within that month, you lose your 2 cents. Nothing happens. But if in that month something terrible happens to American Airlines and their share value drops to 20 cents, your put option is now worth 30 cents. You bought the right to sell your stock at 50 cents, and that stock is now worth 20 cents. So that 30 cents is your profit. Now imagine you knew something terrible was going to happen to American Airlines. You would load up on put options. You would buy as many as you could, as cheap as you could. And when the price crashed, you would collect. That is exactly what happened in early September 2001. In the 5 days before the attacks, something unusual showed up on the options market. On the 6th of September 2001, put volume for UAL, which is United Airlines' parent company, skyrocketed to over... Then on the 10th, put volume for AMR, which is the parent company for American Airlines, skyrocketed to over 4,000. Usual daily put volume for these companies is seen here, 27 per day. This is calculated at 285 times the normal trading volume. But it wasn't just planes. I've only captured Morgan Stanley here, but a number of World Trade Center tenants also had skyrocketed put options in the day before 9/11. Morgan Stanley seen 80 times the daily average of put trade in the 4 days before 9/11. Merrill Lynch, also located near the towers, seen 12,215 puts in the 4 days before 9/11. No other airline seen similar spikes, and there are 3 separate peer-reviewed studies that confirm these patterns are statistically abnormal. Alan Peteshman at the University of Illinois, publishing in the Journal of Business, found that put options were in the 99th percentile in the days before 9/11. In plain terms, if you lined up every single day of options trading in American history, the days before 9/11 were more extreme than 99 out of 100. His conclusion, and I quote, was, "The data is consistent with informed investors having traded options in advance of the attacks." At the University of Zurich, Mark Chesney, Remo Cremieri, and Loreno Mancini also found at least 13 instances of abnormal trading consistent with insider trading. And their method controlled for hedging, meaning they ruled out the possibility that these trades were just banks doing normal risk activity. Separately, Wing Kung Yang, Howard E. Thompson, and Ki Hong Tae examined the S&P 500, and they measure how frightened the market is. They also found abnormal spikes just before the attacks that could not be explained. This is 3 separate studies, 3 separate universities, 3 separate continents finding the same thing. Someone traded on advance notice. But where this gets interesting is where those trades went. The largest single cluster of put options went through one brokerage, Alex Brown. That name matters a lot because of who built this company. Alvin Bernard Buzzy Krongard was born in 1936. He served in the US Marines and then studied law at the University of Maryland before joining Alex Brown in the 1970s. By 1991, he was the CEO, and by 1994, he was the chairman, the firm's most powerful figure. This was at a time when Alex Brown was bringing to market for the first time Oracle, Microsoft, AOL, Starbucks, Dell, Yahoo, PeopleSoft, 3Com, and Checkpoint Software. During the exact same period, Buzzy Krongard was also a consultant to the directors of the CIA. In the late 90s, Buzzy leaves Alex Brown and goes full-time with the CIA, and 6 months before 9/11, he is promoted to executive director of the Central Intelligence Agency. So the man who built the brokerage that the biggest cluster of pre-9/11 put options went through was, on the day of the attacks, running the daily operations for the CIA. The Securities and Exchange Commission started to review trades on the 12th of September, but they concluded they had found no evidence that anyone who traded had advanced knowledge of the attacks. They traced 95% of the United Airlines put options to this single institutional investor. They even interviewed the CEO and the trader. The firm said this was just a bearish bet on the whole airline sector, even though it was only done against American Airlines and United, and the SEC accepted that. They then redacted the name of the investor and classified the entire report. They then spent a decade fighting Freedom of Information requests. When the National Security Archive at George Washington University finally forced this release in 2010, the name was still redacted. Separately, the SEC's own Office of Inspector General documented that the SEC had destroyed pre-investigation files called Matters Under Inquiry. This violated federal record-keeping rules. This SEC investigation was flawed in its design because it centered around one single question. They were trying to establish, did Al-Qaeda or its associates profit from these trades? When the answer to that narrow question was no, they stopped looking. They never asked if it was a US hedge fund. Meanwhile, Krongard's successor at Alex Brown, Mayo A. Shattuck III, weirdly resigned the day after 9/11. Explanation ever given as to why. He just moved into a new job in the energy sector. I'm running out of time, but if you go to part 2, I'm going to talk about Krongard and his brother and how they introduced Blackwater to the CIA.